Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. For Ram, it is good evening. Welcome to today's WBEX pre-summit session. We're going to get started in just a moment. In the meantime, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Today's session is going to last for 45 minutes, and you can use the Q&A box to interact with us. The chat box will be disabled. You will not be able to use the chat box at all, so please use Q&A box to ask questions. Ron would love to hear any and all questions that you have, so please post in there frequently. He would love to answer them, and he wants the session to be very interactive. So for now, can you please post in the Q&A box your name and where you're from? Thank you so much. You guys know the drill. I just want to know that you all can hear me. Appreciate you being here today. My name is Kristen, and I am the head of partnerships at WBEX, and I'm going to be your host for Ramanathan's session. In order to make the most of today's learning experience, we recommend that you turn off any and all distractions and prepare to take notes and allow yourself to be fully focused. With all that said, I want to welcome you to our WBEX pre-summit. Our mission here is simple. It's to significantly raise the standard of coaching. And we do this by curating a faculty of world-class coaching thought leaders and making them accessible to you online in a format that you can consume at any time, anywhere in the world. The WBEX Summit is divided into two parts, and the first part is what you're experiencing right now. It's completely complimentary, and we are delivering TED-style presentations from each of our speakers. This pre-summit is designed to give you a taste of what to expect in the full summit and delivers standalone value, whether you decide to buy a ticket or not. The second part is a full summit, and this runs year-long. We started on September 6th. This offers an immersive learning experience and access to over 180 CCE units. Also new for WBEX 2018, we are doing live coaching demos by some of our top thought leaders. This is a really exciting addition, and we literally just added it last week. So you can check out more details at the link that my colleague Chris is going to put into the chat box right now. Okay, so he'll put that link into the chat box if you want to peruse the list and see what to expect in the full summit. We also ask you to partner with us in our mission of raising the global standard of coaching. We think that this is very, very important. This is something that we get out of bed for every single day. If you are happy to share with your friends and with your colleagues about the full summit and about the pre-summit, they can continue getting access to free pre-summit sessions through June 20th, so it's not too late to share. Please put happy into the Q&A box right now, and we'll give you a very short and easy message that you can send to your colleagues so that they can experience the pre-summit along with you. Go ahead and put happy right now. Lots of happy people. I appreciate that. And we can go ahead and get you a short and easy message that you can share. We also encourage you to continue the conversation on what you're learning throughout the pre-summit, and we offer you the following ways to stay connected with us and your peers from across the globe. First of all, Chris is going to put a link into our Facebook group page, and you are able to get into that Facebook group and talk about the sessions that you are absolutely loving and what questions you have in the sessions. So please go ahead and do that. The other thing you can do is join us for our implementation mastery sessions, which Chris is heading up, my colleague Chris. Implementation mastery sessions offer you a safe place to connect with the WBEX global coach community, and you can share ideas and discuss what you are learning on the summit live and in person over Zoom. I highly recommend registering for this early so that you can get in and start talking about sessions that you love. Chris will go ahead and drop the link in for the implementation mastery sessions where you can register right now. So with all that said, very excited to get started. Today we have a very special session for you, and I'm honored to introduce Ramanathan. He's an advisor to governments, a serial entrepreneur, an angel investor, and a TQM expert. He's professionally credentialed coach and trainer, an adjunct professor at Northwestern Law School, and IIM, Bangalore, India. He was awarded Global Coach of 2014 by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. And here's a fun fact about Ram. He was training to be a monk at one time, and that is what led him to be a coach. So with all that said, I'd love to introduce you to Ram.
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks all of you there taking part in this pre-summit session. Some of the material that I might be referring to would all be available on the links that you see here, and I'm sure that you would be getting a copy of that, so you can access our website and be able to get the material. So let me get on to the presentation. I'm starting with this poem, Robert Frost. Very often it's referred to as The Road Less Traveled. The real name of the poem is The Road Not Taken. And it starts with a sentence which I have not included here, where Frost says, "I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Many people, when they learn it at school, fortunately I didn't, because my medium of education was in the regional language, and all that I learned was a little bit of Shakespeare and Byron and Wordsworth and Shelley. It was much later that I came across Robert Frost. And I see that many people talk about the road less traveled by, and that is not really at all the intent of Frost. He himself said later, at some point in time, no one is happy with the choices that they make, and they sigh and they regret. And that was the whole purpose of this poem. That any road that you come across in life, and there are many roads that we come across in life, forks, 2 roads, 3 roads, and we always think that we make a great choice by choosing one over the other. And pretty much always, and mixing metaphors a bit, the grass is always greener on the road that we did not take. And that's really what he talks about. So it's all about dilemmas or dilemmas, depending upon which part of the Atlantic you are from, and how they pose the basic question of life as to what path that you want to choose and what we want to do. And this is pretty much my experience as a coach. Almost about 90% of all coaching issues that I work with, in one case, way or another, be it executive, be it life, be it high potential, be it performance, be it behavioral, it all hinges around a kind of a dilemma. What is the choice I want to make? And that is really what I want to go through during the session with you. And that is what causes the confusion. And we will come to the specific confusion that I talk about in a few minutes' time. Just a brief bit about my own background. I trained to be an engineer, and I was in industry and I was a corporate leader for a long, long time. I'm sorry about a typo out there, which says disillusioned as a corporate leader, so it should be just leader. By the time I was 40, I was already a chief executive, and that's really what I was aiming for. I was a member of the Young Presidents Organization and several other such bodies. And at some point in time, this didn't quite work out. Essentially, I was in Indonesia, and I built a multi-billion-dollar business, and suddenly the economy of the country collapsed, and I didn't have really a job anymore. So I became a consultant without choice, and then I also became a consultant to countries, multilateral agencies. I started my own angel investment and venture capital firm. At some point in time, I got completely disillusioned. I was looking for the purpose in life. What should I do? And at that point in time, I chose, as Kristen said earlier, to follow a spiritual path. And I believed that the answers lay with someone who had more wisdom and more knowledge than I had. And for 6 years, I trained to be a monk, as it were. But I didn't have a Ferrari to sell or write a book about that. What I was left with was a bit of disillusionment at the end of it when I found the person that I was following with tremendous amount of devotion and respect was doing things other than what he was telling us to do. So there was a total amount of hypocrisy, and which is what I found in many other people since then that I have come into contact. And that was when I disengaged from this spiritual quest in a sense, preferring instead to look for myself within. And that led me eventually to be a coach. And today what I do, an international institution which works to developing coaches and working with companies as coaches. The point is that whenever I made a choice and did something, it didn't ever work out right. But when I allowed things to happen with a broader purpose, a vision, and it always seemed to work. One of the things that greatly influenced me, somewhere when I was in my mid-30s, I was ambitious, tremendously ambitious. I was working for a global multinational, one of the top 50 in the world. And I read this book by Gail Sheehy, Passages. And if you haven't, I would very strongly recommend that you read it. I have no financial interest in Gail Sheehy making more money. One of the things that she says in this book, which is based on a survey of several 100,000 people, it's about the movement of anyone through several decades in their lives, and starting with the 20s, where she says, when you are in your 20s, you feel you're immortal, invincible, idealistic. There's nothing that you cannot do. There's nothing that can stop you, by and large. And as you move into your 30s, something happens. You probably start losing hair. Hair turns gray. You start getting buzz cuts, and if it doesn't work, you shave your head. And at some point in time, you feel that there is an expiry date to your life. And so there's a desperation in terms of wanting to be something. And Gail calls it, I want to be president. And that's exactly what I felt when I was about 35. I want to be president of something, whatever it may be. And in that particular case, since I would happen to be with a multinational, I wanted to be the CEO of the operation that the company had in India. And I kept working at it through various processes. And when I was about 39, I realized that I wasn't going to be CEO in that company. So I had an opportunity to become the CEO of a smaller company. I became a CEO. And apart from the status and power that I wanted to have, it was also about money. I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was about 43. All that happened one after another. And they happened for a reason. They happened with some processes that I was working on. But as I said, it didn't last very long. In the next about 5 or 6 years, and I was about 50, when suddenly the world that I was in exploded. And the country, it was in Indonesia at the time, went through an economic crisis. I didn't have a job anymore. So usually what happens, Gail Sheehy says, is by the time you're 40, you either realize all those ambitions that you want to. Usually, for most people, these are either wealth or power. And she talks about the situation where if you don't achieve it, what happens? It's like going through the 5 stages of grief. There is a denial, there is anger, there is bargaining, there's depression, and finally an acceptance for some people. What I experienced was somewhat different, and she doesn't really quite talk about it. Where I did achieve whatever I wanted. I made money, I made CEO, I made global CEO. I was heading a conglomerate which was several $1 billion in wealth across 11 countries. But whatever I achieved only led to more greed to achieve more. It was never ending. It just continued and continued. And there was no satisfaction. There was no fulfillment. And it was almost as if that either I had to be reconciled to this permanent state of discontent and non-fulfillment, or I needed to do something. And that was when I decided that I really want to break out of this, almost saying, I want the world to stop, let me get out of this. And eventually I became a coach, as I said, after the spiritual journey. Now, as a coach, what I find is that this is a situation that I find with many people that I meet today, younger people, especially with the work that I do in the United States, in Europe. I find more and more people in India as well, where I'm in Bangalore, which is a technology capital outside of Silicon Valley. People in their 20s today make a lot of money. They're extremely successful. But something happens. I see many people who are around 30, early 30s today, late 20s, who have made a lot of money, who have achieved whatever they thought that they wanted to, something similar to what happened to me at the age of about 50, they find that something is missing. What they tell me often when I work with them as a coach is, there's nothing that satisfies me. I'm discontent, I'm not fulfilled, but I'm not sure what is going to satisfy me. So this is why I call this a confused generation. It is not that they are offered folks to choose, they had chosen whatever they wanted to, but whatever path that they chose is no longer the path they want to be in. But at the same time, they're not quite sure what is it that would really make their life any better. Very often people talk about passion. So I started first working with trying to check with them, what is it that you're passionate about? They said, this is what I was passionate about. I wanted to be a quant, I wanted to be a financial wizard, or I wanted to be a software genius, or whatever it is. But having achieved whatever I needed to achieve in that profession, it doesn't satisfy me anymore. And I'm not quite sure what is going to satisfy me. At this stage, I'll just pause. And if there are any questions, because I just wanted to be interactive, and perhaps there are many of you who are in that state, and I would like to hear a little bit from you, if you both like to.
Yeah, please share that in the Q&A box if you can relate with this story, if you are in this stage, maybe what brought you here. Ram, one question we are getting is, can you tell us the title and the author of the book?
The book is called, as far as I remember, The Passages, Passages. The author is Gail Sheehy, Gailshehey. You can easily Google that. And it was written about almost 40 years ago. And subsequently, she wrote other books, New Passages, and so on. But this is the original book, Gail Sheehy, Passages.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Kay is wondering, I'm curious, Ram, what do you think is the cause of this shift? What is your take?
You mean the shift to discontent? Is that what you're saying?
I'm assuming that's what she's meaning, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if there's anything else to it other than what I'm assuming, yeah.
He says yes.
Yeah, okay, fine. What happened to me was this. Gail Sheehy's book did not answer all the questions that I eventually came up with. Basically, what Gail Sheehy said was this. The name is here, Passages, Gail Sheehy. This is the name of the book. In the 30s, you desperately want to be something. There is an expiry date to your life. You want to achieve something. And most usually, in my experience today, I find that it's about wealth and power, that I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a CEO, I want to be in the corner office, and so on and so forth. What Sheehy talks about mostly are the kind of people who haven't made it. So by the time they are early 40s, they go through a kind of a midlife crisis, a male menopause, whatever you want to call it. And at that point in time, their only option is either be frustrated for the rest of their life or try and accept it. And eventually many of them do accept it. But there are people like me, and which is what I'm finding more and more often, who achieved success. Everything that we wanted happened, became a CEO, made my millions, did whatever I needed to, but it never stopped. There was a greed to move more and more. And suddenly at some point, in my case, it happened out of a trauma in a sense that there was an economic crisis and I didn't have a job and I started working on my own. It's not that I was a pauper. I was still pretty rich and I was okay. I didn't have 10,000 people to report to me, but it was a pretty comfortable life. But suddenly the shift, if that is what Kay is asking, was that life didn't have a meaning anymore. All that I thought was very important, wealth and power, were so transient. I mean, if you're a Buddhist, you would resonate that very well. Like Buddha said, everything is transient, everything is impermanent. It's called anicca in Pali language. And to get over that, I think is far more difficult than accepting the fact that you haven't been a success. Accepting that you've been a success and you're not able to find happiness in what you do is perhaps more difficult. And that's really what happened to me. And that's what led me to this monastic path, which wasn't also very successful. I wrote 30 books, and they were all published by this particular religious institution, spiritual institution that I worked with. They sold pretty well. I taught pretty much thousands of people across the world. I was a spiritual healer. I was a teacher of meditation, all that kind of stuff. But when I found that the person that I was following wasn't quite what I wanted, so something broke again. So it was back to the same thing. So what really helped me was becoming a coach. And there was something that suddenly I found, which I found to be my purpose. It was also the passion, but the passion was not something I recognized as a passion before. But suddenly I seem to have found the purpose that I wanted to find. So if any other questions, I'll just put them on, and Kristen, just let me know, I'll answer them. So
yeah.
one of the things, yeah.
Oh, sorry. we do have a few more.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what you mean exactly by saying look for purpose rather than passion? I think you were probably just about to get to it.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. You know, some of you might have read this book. I think it is called Design for Living. It's written by two professors from Stanford. They run a class which is very, very popular. And they start the book saying there's no such thing as passion. Everybody talks about passion and nobody is able to answer that. In a sense, they are right. In a sense, they are wrong. So instead, what I do ask people is, what is it that has always, through your life at various points in time, made you joyful, made you really happy? Do you find a pattern in it? And very often I do find a pattern. And the pattern could be that you become really happy when you achieve something. Sometimes even without rewards. Of course, you feel better if it's rewarded, recognized, but even if you don't, it's something difficult that was challenging, that I achieved something and I become really happy. Or I'm helping other people, I'm in service to other people. Or just the fact I'm in some kind of a good relationship. It's with my family, friends, or a partner. And then it could even be pets, for example, for many people. Suddenly, that pattern that makes you happy, makes you really feel fulfilled at that point in time, turns out to be a hint to the purpose that you might like to have in life. There are some very powerful processes to be able to discover what your purpose is. So in a sense, purpose and passion, I would say, are mirror images. And passion is something, it's almost like everybody says, oh, you need to find your passion. And there's no easy way to find what you're passionate about for some people. They say, oh, I don't know what I'm passionate about. But some people are. They would say, music is my passion, or painting is my passion, or something else is my passion. Purpose is equally difficult. But if you start looking at what is it that has made you joyful so far in your life, what has made you happy? I look at it this way. The purpose of our life is to be happy. The purpose of our life is to be fulfilled. And that's what we came in here for, into this world. And that's why I truly believe. And that is what, for example, one of the greatest souls living today, the Dalai Lama, when he says, and that's what he really says. And people who have looked at him, just to look at him makes you feel happy, makes you feel fulfilled. And if the purpose for us is to be happy and fulfilled, then if you look back in life to see what is it that has made us happy and fulfilled in life, it could give us a very good idea in terms of what in future also would make us happy or fulfilled. So to some extent, I'm putting it very, very simply, it's not as simple. There's a huge process that you need to go through. I'll come to that in a minute to the extent that I can cover it today. When I work with people, one of the things that I work with them is stuff like Hero's Journey of Joseph Campbell or Maslow's The Hierarchies. And in Hero's Journey, those of you who are familiar with Hero's Journey, it's about we all live some kind of life which keeps repeating every day, the same thing. We think that we are doing things differently. We might eat different cereals, but eventually it's all about this same repetition all through our life. And once in a while, we suddenly find there is something that we need to do. Campbell calls it a call. 90% of the time, 90% of the people do not ever answer that call. They go back to living the life. What was a famous movie where you get up every day and you see the same thing happening? What are the name is, the Groundhog's Day or whatever it is called. So it's almost like a Groundhog's Day. You keep repeating the same thing again and again and think it is different. And one of the definitions of insanity is that you keep doing the same thing again and again and hoping the results would be different. And that's the insanity life that we lead. But occasionally, there is a call to do something different that happens to us. And that call could be, hey, give up this job, do something more difficult, take up something challenging, even if it doesn't give you the same amount of money, and you may suffer a bit, but that might be different. And that might be the kind of stuff that has made you happy in the past. So many people like me who worked in multinationals, we had a golden chain leash around our necks and we were paid very well. We didn't want to think about anything else because it's too much of a risk to go and do something else. We would lose all the benefits, all the security that we had. But if you had the gumption to do that, then Joseph Campbell calls it the hero's journey. And then you move towards something, the Holy Grail, as it were, climbing the Mount Everest or whatever you want to do. And he says that is just half the journey. That itself is a battle. There are many things that you have to overcome. There are many temptations. There are mentors who come your way. They support you. So if you have the faith and you have the confidence that the universe would support you. And Paul Coelho says in his book, The Prophet, the universe would conspire to fulfill your dreams. And that is very true in my experience. If you truly have that dream that you are passionate about, that you have a belief as a purpose, the universe does conspire to help you. And then you reach that holy grail, the top of the mountain, whatever you want to reach. He said that's just half of the journey. You have to get back to what you left behind. You have to get back into the society that you left behind. And then you have to work back with them. And you have to be humble enough, vulnerable enough to be back into that society and to be of service to them. And that's a more difficult part. And that is what I learned as well. And so for many of these people who I call the confused generation, we work with a process where trying to find this passion, this purpose, that they find something to move towards. And then at the same time, help them visualize in the longer term how they would come back to what they left behind after having achieved it, to make themselves happy. So as I said here, the more important half of the journey is the return.
That is really interesting, Ram. And I just wanted to let you know we've got about 6 minutes left, just to give you a time check.
Yeah. So let me quickly go through this. If you go to a coach, the coach is going to ask you, if you are one of the confused generation, and typical, whether it's ICF or anybody else, what's your desired outcome? What is important? What stands in the way? But none of these questions have any meaning when the client doesn't even know what the desired outcome is, because the client knows what the client doesn't want. The client doesn't know what he wants. And one of the reasons for that happening, there are many processes that you can go through, and when you get this, you can look at them. There is neurolinguistic programming, reframing, constellations. All these can help in some ways, but not always, not enough. The limitations are because we have, especially today, much more than my generation, 2 generations ago. I'm a baby boomer, 3 generations ago. We have multiple choices, but we don't seem to be able to make options which work for us, which makes us satisfied, which makes us fulfilled. And the main reason for that is that there are past memories of our experiences which create in us a kind of a prisoning in a time-space boundary. And until and unless that these memories are completely erased and we are able to imprint a new blueprint, as it were, in terms of what we want to achieve, we are constantly going to be going around in circles within that boundary. And I've said here, be mindless. The reason I say this is because today I see many people who, for example, who are more literary searchers rather than researchers in the field, talk about things in neurobiology, for example. It could be on, let's say, neurochemicals, neuroplasticity, and stuff like that. They can tell you, for example, if there is a lot of oxytocin that is being produced in your body instead of cortisol, you're going to feel happy. I completely agree. But do they know how to produce the oxytocin? That's really the question. And similarly, people will tell you that your mind can, you can create new neural networks, you can change your behavior. And that's what happens when the neural networks in a particular space become denser and so on and so forth. Do they know how to create that? They don't. And there is this concept of mindfulness, which is the greatest thing going around in circles. And to quote one of your famous leaders in the United States, it's a fake word, actually. Mindfulness was never a word in the Buddhist lexicon. It was a misinterpretation by an English translator who translated a word called sati, which means memory in Pali, into the word mindfulness. It's about, and memory is a bad word in the Eastern tradition, because memory is about imprisonment of yourself in your time-space boundary, not letting you out of that. So what Buddha was talking about was to get out of that memory space, to be able to become mindless. And instead, many people follow mindfulness thinking that it's going to help them. And what they do is to get into the sensory awareness, which in the Eastern tradition is basically the cause of all the problems. And all sorrows are because of sensory experiences like desire. So because of my background, the research that I did in the spiritual space, and in addition with Jungian psychology and so on and so forth, and also neurosciences, reading people like Bruce Lipton, who was a molecular biologist, Viola Ramchandran, who's a great neuropsychologist, as it were, and many other people. Try to make meaning out of what I read and develop a process which effectively helps to clear up the mind space. In a simple way, your mind space is like a computer, and the emotional memories that you have are like video files. More and more video files you have, the computer is going to hang. So does your brain. And you get confused, you get hung into something. You don't know what the way out is. The only way to do that is to clear those. And one of the simplest ways of doing that is to experience those memories, relive them, to relieve them. And in a sense, those video memories are converted into text memories. I'm trying to make a very crude analogy, which some people may laugh at. But essentially what happens is that your mind gets clear and you convert it into a kind of a tabula rasa, a whiteboard. And on that, then you can imprint your purpose, your vision. So this is a simple process over a period of time that we created, a 7-step process for creating the future. And basically, it is founded on the belief that the more you apply your mind, which is the ego, which are the senses, the more imprisoned you are. And you are caught in the current reality of the problems that you face. Can you detach and disengage from that? So one of the processes that we do is to take you 20 years ahead, 25 years ahead, try to envision yourself in terms of what you would like to be as a holistic person who's holistic? What's the legacy that you want to leave? And then come back to the present moment as an observer and go through certain processes which allow that to be embedded in your unconscious mind. So there's some stuff which is there on the website. There is more we can talk about. As Krishna would tell you, I'm coming back here on 15th of November, I think, for the full summit. At that point in time, I'll go into more details, but yes, you can access the website, you can get in touch with us. Maybe I might be able to help in specific cases. So I'll stop at this point in time and answer any questions if there are, given that there is not much time left.
Yes, we do have some questions. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that we're getting now, and then I'll go through even more at the very end. So some of the questions that we're getting right now is more about, moving into your purpose. So best strategies to find purpose with people who are high powered and look for a quick ROI, for example. That's a question that we're getting from Leanne.
If that is your purpose, I'm sad to say that you're going to be pretty much in the confused generation for a long, long time to come. In terms of power, in terms of money, that is never a higher purpose. And I'm speaking from my experience and pretty much hundreds of other people whom I have worked with. There is something far greater than that, which is, if you're familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy, is a moving from what's called the self-esteem into the self-actualization. And the self-actualization is about other people. What is it that you can do to help others in addition to yourself? And if you're able to get into that space, yes, perhaps you might be able to get into that higher purpose level.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to take more questions in just a few minutes. We've received some excellent questions and some excellent insight from people on this webinar. Thank you so much for all of these. And just so you know, if we don't get to your questions here, please go to the Facebook link that Chris is going to post in the chat right now. And in this Facebook link, you can let us know your questions, what you thought about the session, your insights, and really start a communication online, really a discussion about this with Ram. The other thing is we have these amazing implementation mastery sessions. We actually have one that's starting at 12 p.m. EST, and it is all about Ram sessions. So please go ahead and register for that, and you can do so with the link that Chris is going to post into the chat box now. We also have some questions that have been coming into the Q&A box about joining the full summit. And one of them is, what exactly does the full summit include and when does it start? So the full summit is going to start on September 6th, right after your summer vacation. This consists of 2 weekly live 90-minute classes with our WBEX thought leaders. It also consists of more implementation mastery sessions and roundtable discussions that enable you to master the learning concepts and to integrate your skills and form meaningful connections with other coaches from across the globe. Also, brand new as of last week, we are going to be having some live coaching demos with some of our thought leaders that I know you're going to enjoy. For those of you who have really busy schedules, you're able to purchase packages where you can listen to the recordings after the live sessions have been hosted and have access to this for life. Many of you have also been asking about accessing the slides for today's session. That will also be available with a full summit pass. You don't just get slides, but you also get transcripts, professional notes, as well as audio and video downloads for the pre and the full summit, so you can really learn at your own pace. With the full summit, you'll have the opportunity to gain over 180 CCE units, which is amazing. It's really, really great value. And for a limited time, this is huge, we're offering a year-long full summit passes at 50% off, which saves you up to $750 per ticket. This offer ends in 2.5 weeks on Thursday, June 28th. So please be sure to get your pass before that date. And if you're interested in joining us for that year-long learning experience, then please go ahead and just click on the link that Chris will put into the chat box right now. So we're also providing as a huge bonus, access to all 2017 WBEX session recordings. This is a bonus that we decided to extend because it sold out very quickly. So when you buy an executive speed learner pass for the year of 2018, you will also get access to all 2017 WBEX session recordings. So that's pretty amazing. I don't know when that's going to end, so please go ahead and get your ticket soon if that is something you're interested in. Last but not least, I wanted to add that sometimes people want to talk to our team individually and just have a voice, conversation, an actual conversation with a human about which pass would be right for them. And I want to offer that if you want to speak to someone live, you can always call us. We have a phone number. It's 415-963-9964, and I can go ahead and put that in the chat box in just a second. So please give us a call if you want to actually speak to somebody live. WBEX is co-created by amazing coaches like you from all across the world. And we do this by collecting and implementing your feedback. Your feedback is so incredibly valuable to us. So what I'm going to do is launch a poll right now. We would love to get your thoughts on this session. I already know that they're very positive. We've been having a lot of great response in the Q&A box. But please go ahead and answer this poll. Let us know what your thoughts are and what you would like to see in the future. So now I'm going to go ahead and take some more questions for Ram, because I know there are more. And some of the questions now are about environment. Ram, Tanya is asking, how does environment play a role in all these things that you're discussing with passion and purpose?
Yeah, in one sense, whether it's culture, whether it's environment, I think they do play a role. It's not very clear to me how exactly they play a role. But what I do notice is today that more people are far more idealistic. The millennials, far from a lot of rubbish that I hear from older people, they have far greater ideals and far more dedicated to doing good things to the environment than many of the older people. And so in what sense you ask this question, I do not know, but the culture, the environment that you are in makes a huge difference. Surprisingly, I find that in America, I get far more interest in the subject that I'm discussing than perhaps in India, which is supposed to be much more spiritual. So the environment doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a tradition of so-called spirituality, it's necessarily going to be fostering. I'm not quite sure whether I am answering your question, but that's my take on it.
I'm wondering too if it's because of family expectations in India that happen, that are really strong for people.
Yeah, but they also imprison people. So tradition binds us, they don't liberate us. So, I mean, it's a huge subject. So, yeah, it's something that, you need to work on case to case with individuals. It's not collective. So each person's DNA defines what their purpose is. It's not a collective kind of DNA that works here.
Okay. Well, Rebecca is asking, life purpose must necessarily be achieved through the labor that people develop, or can they be separated aspects of people's life?
What is it? The labor. What is the word that was used there?
Yeah, through the labor that people develop.
Yeah, well, I don't quite understand the question. If by labor, it's about the kind of work that they do, it's what they are used to, because we are very often led into certain situations that we choose for different reasons, like exactly what Frost talks about in his poem. So the life purpose, let me diverge a little bit. In the Eastern philosophy, there's a concept that when we are born, we come here with a purpose. And that purpose may not necessarily be obvious to us, but there's a very, very clear purpose. And there are processes I have worked with those processes, and I have been able to help people for them to find. There was a guy who I was in a workshop with and working with, and suddenly he said, I see myself walking on the road wearing Buddhist robes, and I'm walking towards the sunset. And 6 months later, he became a monk. So different people have these kind of different experiences. There are ways and means by means of which this purpose can be extricated from the maze of other garbage that we have in our minds. So again, it need not necessarily be what might be called the labor or the work that one is doing.
Got it. Thank you so much. And we'll take one last question. Ria asked, I personally have taken the journey of knowing my purpose of life. Sometimes I get into conversations where other people ask about having a personal and professional purpose. Is it possible to have two different purposes?
I don't think so. Because purpose, the way that I'm defining it here, and of course everybody is welcome to define it the way that they want. If you start having a work and life purpose separately, then what happens is you become schizophrenic. And that is what is happening to a large part of our society. We cut ourselves into two halves, and we can look at it as a life half and a work half. And forever we are trying to get the twains to meet. It will never happen. And it's not about a balance we are talking about here. We're talking about integration. And the integration can only happen if you have one purpose. And very often that one purpose, if correctly understood, can make you successful both in your life and work. And that's what I have found. I have found it with many, many other people that I have worked with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Not to divide your attention so much, but to fulfill on one purpose. I love that. Well, thank you, Ram. We are at that time. And thank you so much to all of our participants on the WBEX Pre-Summit. Your time is valued. We value you being here, and we really appreciate it. For those of you who want to continue the conversation about Ram's session, it seems like there's a lot of insight, great insight coming through. You can join us in just about 13 minutes on an implementation mastery session. And for those of you who would love to see Ram again in the full summit, he'll be doing a 90-minute session in the full summit in November. So please go ahead and purchase your passes using the link in the chat box. Again, we are so happy to have had you. Ram, thank you so much for your time. And everyone, we will see you on our next WBEX Pre-Summit session. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day and night. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Kristen. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.